In this episode, we focus on the moment where measurement stops being a dashboard and starts becoming a plan, because a Security Operations Center, SOC, can track dozens of numbers and still fail to improve if those numbers never turn into concrete, sustained change. Metrics tell you what is happening and, with analytics, why it might be happening, but they do not automatically create better operations. A strategic plan is what connects observations to decisions, decisions to work, and work to durable improvement that survives staff changes, shifting priorities, and the next urgent incident. Beginners often assume a plan is just a list of goals and a timeline, but a real operational plan also includes ownership, sequencing, dependencies, and a way to verify progress without gaming the numbers. The core idea is that measurement is only valuable when it reliably shapes how the SOC allocates attention, adjusts process, and invests in visibility and capability over time. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A strong plan begins with clarity about what problem you are trying to solve, because metrics can reveal many issues at once, and it is easy to chase the loudest one rather than the most important one. The first step is to translate your measurement signals into a small set of operational diagnoses, such as triage is slow because alerts lack context, investigation stall because ownership is unclear, or response is inconsistent because playbooks are incomplete. Those diagnoses must be evidence-driven, meaning you can point to trends, bottleneck patterns, and specific failure modes instead of relying on anecdote. The plan then chooses which diagnosis to address first based on impact, risk, and feasibility, because not every issue deserves immediate attention even if it is measurable. This is where strategic thinking begins, because the best plan is not the one that fixes the most things, but the one that fixes the highest leverage constraints in the right order. When the plan starts with a crisp definition of the few problems that matter most, every later decision becomes easier and less political. Once you have the key problems, you need to express them as outcomes the SOC wants to achieve, not just activities the SOC wants to perform. An activity might be tune alerts, create playbooks, or improve logging, but an outcome is something like reduce the time to confidently triage high-impact signals, improve detection quality so analysts spend more time on meaningful cases, or reduce repeat incidents tied to the same root cause. Outcomes matter because they align people across roles, including analysts, leadership, and partner teams, and they make measurement meaningful because the metric is tied to a real operational result. A plan that is built around activities can look busy while failing to change results, especially if the activities are not targeted at the actual bottleneck. A plan built around outcomes can still include the same activities, but it treats them as means, not ends, and it uses metrics to verify whether the outcome is moving. This distinction also reduces the risk of vanity success, where numbers look better but risk is unchanged, because the plan is anchored to what the business actually needs from the SOC. A strategic plan must also decide which metrics are decision metrics and which are context metrics, because not every number should trigger action. Decision metrics are the ones that will cause the plan to change course, such as a sustained rise in backlog for high-severity cases, a persistent decline in detection precision, or repeated delays in containment due to approval friction. Context metrics provide supporting information, such as overall alert volume trends, distribution of case durations, or the proportion of work that is proactive versus reactive. When everything is treated as equally urgent, the plan becomes unstable and the team becomes distracted because they chase fluctuations rather than sustained signals. The plan should define what patterns matter, such as a trend over several weeks rather than a single-day spike, and it should explain why those patterns matter in terms of risk and operational health. This approach turns measurement into governance, meaning the organization agrees in advance on how it will interpret signals and when it will invest in change. For beginners, this is a key maturity idea because it prevents the plan from being rewritten every time a chart wiggles. Turning metrics into sustained change also requires converting diagnoses into initiatives that are scoped tightly enough to execute, but broad enough to produce meaningful improvement. An initiative is not a vague effort to improve something, but a defined piece of work with clear boundaries, such as improving alert context enrichment for critical assets, standardizing triage steps for a high-volume alert category, or improving identity visibility for privileged actions. Each initiative should state what will change in operations, what evidence suggests the change will help, and what metric movement would indicate success. It should also state what could go wrong, such as increasing noise, increasing friction for legitimate users, or shifting work to another team, because sustained change requires anticipating side effects. A plan that treats initiatives as experiments with clear success signals tends to produce more durable improvement than a plan that treats initiatives as mandates. When you define initiatives this way, you create a portfolio of change that can be prioritized and sequenced without losing the thread of why the work exists. Ownership is where many strategic plans fail, because without named responsibility, improvement work becomes optional and gets displaced by daily firefighting. Each initiative needs an owner who is accountable for driving it forward, coordinating dependencies, and reporting on progress in a way that is honest about obstacles. The owner is not necessarily the person who performs every task, but the person who ensures the work happens and that the team does not drift into partial implementation without validation. Ownership also includes who decides trade-offs when metrics conflict, such as when speed improves but quality declines, because sustained change requires balanced decision-making rather than optimization of a single number. A mature plan includes a cadence where owners review metrics, share what changed, and adjust course based on evidence, not on optimism. For beginners, it is important to see that planning is not separate from leadership. It is leadership expressed through repeatable decisions and accountability. When ownership is clear, metrics become a tool for coordination instead of a source of argument. Sequencing is another critical element, because many improvements depend on foundations that must be built first, and skipping foundations produces fragile results. For example, if a metric suggests investigations are slow due to missing evidence, the plan might need to improve telemetry consistency before it can successfully standardize playbooks that depend on that evidence. If a metric suggests alert volume is overwhelming, the plan might need to improve detection precision before it can realistically expand proactive hunting, because hunting requires attention that noise consumes. Sequencing also matters because changes can interact, and multiple simultaneous changes can make metrics hard to interpret, which undermines the feedback loop. A strategic plan should therefore stagger initiatives in a way that allows measurement to reflect cause and effect, at least roughly, so you can learn what worked. This is not about moving slowly. It is about moving in a way that keeps improvement controllable and measurable. When sequencing is intentional, the plan builds capability in layers, and each layer makes the next layer easier to deliver. A sustained change plan must address dependencies outside the SOC, because many high-impact improvements require coordination with identity teams, infrastructure teams, application owners, and leadership decision-makers. Metrics often reveal problems whose root causes live elsewhere, such as slow response due to delayed approvals or missing logging due to unmanaged systems. The plan should therefore include a partner strategy that defines what commitments are needed, how progress will be tracked, and how the SOC will communicate value in a way that motivates cooperation. This is where metrics can be used as evidence to justify shared investment, but only if they are credible and tied to business impact. For beginners, it helps to remember that sustained operational change is rarely purely technical. It is organizational alignment expressed through repeatable agreements. When the plan acknowledges dependencies explicitly, it prevents the common failure where the SOC is held responsible for improvements it cannot deliver alone. This also builds trust, because partners are more likely to help when they understand the goal, the evidence, and the expected outcome. Resource planning is part of turning metrics into change, because improvement work requires time, attention, and sometimes money, and those resources must be protected from being consumed entirely by daily operations. A plan that assumes improvement will happen in spare time usually fails, especially in a busy SOC, because spare time disappears first during surges. The strategic approach is to allocate capacity intentionally, which can mean dedicating a portion of analyst time to tuning and playbook development, reserving leadership time for cross-team coordination, and scheduling improvement work so it is not constantly interrupted. This is also where sustainability matters, because metrics can reveal burnout risk through backlog growth, rework, and after-hours overload, and a plan that ignores sustainability will degrade quality over time. Resource planning should therefore treat noise reduction and workflow simplification as investments that pay back capacity later, rather than as distractions from real work. When the plan protects improvement capacity, the SOC can deliver change consistently instead of only after major incidents. Over time, that consistency is what makes improvement sustained rather than episodic. A practical strategic plan must include operational change management, meaning the plan needs a way to introduce changes safely, evaluate them, and avoid creating new problems while trying to fix old ones. Changes to detection logic, triage workflows, escalation rules, and monitoring coverage can have immediate operational consequences, including increased alert volume, missed detections, or confusion about new procedures. A mature plan introduces changes through controlled rollout, clear communication, and defined validation checks that show whether the change improved outcomes. Validation should include both speed and quality measures so you can detect unintended consequences, such as faster closure paired with increased reopens or increased missed signals. This is also where documentation matters, because sustained change requires the organization to remember what changed and why, especially when staff rotate. For beginners, the key idea is that operational change should be treated with the same discipline as incident work, meaning evidence-driven decisions, careful sequencing, and verification. When changes are rolled out this way, the plan becomes a learning system, not a series of disruptive shifts. Another essential element is building feedback loops that turn metrics into course correction, because no plan survives contact with reality exactly as written. The feedback loop includes a regular rhythm of reviewing decision metrics, discussing what they imply, and choosing adjustments based on evidence and operational experience. This review should not become a ritual of reporting, because reporting without decisions wastes time and teaches people that metrics do not matter. The review should produce actions, such as adjusting initiative scope, reallocating resources, tuning thresholds, or revising playbooks based on what analysts encountered. It should also include the discipline of asking whether metric movement reflects true performance change or measurement artifact, such as a logging change that altered counts. For beginners, it helps to view this as the plan's steering mechanism. Metrics provide the signal, analytics provide the explanation, and the feedback loop provides the decision. When this mechanism exists, the plan stays alive and responsive without becoming chaotic. Sustained operational change also requires managing incentives, because metrics can unintentionally push behavior in harmful directions if people feel judged by numbers they cannot control. If analysts are rewarded only for speed, they may close cases prematurely, avoid complex investigations, or hesitate to escalate, which makes metrics look good while risk increases. If teams are rewarded only for low alert volume, they may disable useful detections, which creates quiet that is actually blindness. A strategic plan should therefore define how metrics will be used, emphasizing improvement and learning rather than punishment, and it should include paired measures that reduce gaming, such as combining time to triage with quality indicators like reopen rate or confirmed escalation accuracy. It should also communicate that some metric changes are expected during improvement, such as a temporary rise in alerts when visibility increases, because more visibility often reveals issues that were previously unseen. For beginners, this is a crucial leadership lesson, because sustainable change depends on trust, and trust is damaged when metrics become a weapon. When incentives are managed carefully, metrics become a guide for better behavior rather than a pressure tool that creates shortcuts. Communication is the final glue that turns a plan into sustained change, because people support what they understand, and they resist what feels arbitrary. The plan should communicate a simple narrative: what the SOC learned from measurement, what improvements will be made, what outcomes are expected, and how progress will be verified. Different audiences need different framing, with analysts needing clarity about workflow changes and leaders needing clarity about risk reduction and operational resilience. The best communication avoids drowning people in numbers and instead uses metrics as evidence to support a small set of clear decisions. It also acknowledges uncertainty and limitations, which paradoxically increases credibility because it signals honesty rather than spin. For beginners, it helps to remember that metrics are not only internal tools. They are persuasive tools that justify investment, coordination, and patience during change. When communication is consistent and evidence-based, stakeholders are more likely to accept short-term disruption for long-term capability growth. Over time, the plan must reinforce that improvement is iterative, because sustained change is not a one-time project, but a repeated cycle of observe, decide, act, and verify. Each cycle should strengthen a foundation, such as data quality, detection precision, playbook consistency, or cross-team coordination, and that foundation should make the next cycle easier. The plan should also be updated based on what incidents and hunts reveal, because real events provide the most honest test of operational capability. When a major incident happens, the plan should not be abandoned. Instead, the incident should feed the plan with evidence about what worked and what failed. This is how maturity planning stays grounded in reality rather than drifting into aspirational statements. For beginners, the key is to see that a SOC becomes more effective by compounding small, verified improvements, not by waiting for a perfect redesign. When the plan is iterative and evidence-driven, it remains relevant across changing conditions. In closing, building a strategic plan that turns metrics into sustained operational change means transforming measurement into a disciplined improvement system rather than a passive reporting habit. The plan starts by translating metrics into a small set of evidence-based diagnoses, then defines outcome-focused goals, chooses decision metrics, and scopes initiatives that can be executed and validated. Clear ownership, intentional sequencing, realistic dependency management, and protected resources make improvement possible even when daily operations are demanding. Safe change management and strong feedback loops keep the plan responsive while preserving credibility through verification and balanced measures that discourage gaming. Thoughtful communication builds support and aligns stakeholders around risk reduction and operational resilience, which is necessary for improvements that cross team boundaries. When you build and run this kind of plan, metrics become the raw material for learning, learning becomes action, and action becomes sustained capability growth that a SOC can maintain over time.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit DailyCyber.News.